Good morning. Welcome to TERRA Home. I'm here with Derek Dunphy from Aquascape. Nice to have you back on the show.
Thank you, Leslie. Great
It's
to be
that
back.
time of year, so we're still hanging on to summer with dear life right now.
Absolutely.
But we know the inevitable is that fall is coming and winter will follow. So we need to look at if you have one of these beautiful arrangements in your backyard, and a lot of people do now because
Absolutely, yeah.
we've talked earlier on the season about the fact that a lot more people, this is very attainable for people now.
Yes.
Very easy to do, and some people have tiny ones,
Right.
and some people have very big ones.
Absolutely.
Regardless, you need to make sure that they are taken care of for the winter. So we're going to talk about some of the steps that we need to take
Right.
from fall through to winter to make sure that it's working in order for spring next year.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We want
So-
to keep everything safe.
Yes.
People have made an investment in plants. They've made an investment in fish. And so I'll talk about those two things, how to overwinter them
Okay.
and keep them safe. Now, having said that, the first thing I'm going to say is when it comes to plants, all your tropical stuff is just going to go in your compost. You're going to get rid of it. The tropical stuff, people will want to try to save it for the
Yes.
following year. And in very rare circumstances, if they've got the right lighting in their house and warm water, they can make it happen. But more often than not, the vast majority of the time, you should just be getting rid of that stuff. And that's the number one thing that really affects pond chemistry over the winter is
Okay.
keeping that in there. It inevitably rots and dies
Okay.
and really affects the water chemistry. So you want to get that tropical stuff out. That would mean your hyacinth, your water lettuce, all the floating stuff has got to come right out of your pond.
Now, when do you need to do this? I mean, this will be kind of the sort of the question that when do you actually have to make sure you're on top of this? Because we can have very warm Septembers and even October
Absolutely,
sometimes,
yeah.
right?
We've got a bit of time left, and like I
Okay.
said, we're like holding on to summer.
Right.
So by the middle of October, end of October,
Okay.
probably it should be out, especially the tropical stuff. You'll still be able to enjoy a lot of the hardy lilies.
Okay.
They might get a second or third bloom and give you some color in the fall. And there's some really nice night blooming varieties that can come out in the fall,
Okay.
longer nights. And so you'll see that they'll bloom electric blues and purples.
Oh, that's cool.
They're a little
That's
rare,
cool.
they're harder to find, but they're
Yeah.
out there.
Okay.
But when it comes to even those tropical varieties of lilies, they should be coming out. Now, at TERRA and most leading garden centers, you're going to find hardy stuff that can survive all year round in the pond. And so to take care of that, what we want to do is for all the lilies, take those pots and get them down in the deepest part of your pond.
Okay.
And just before you do that, you're going to cut the stems right down almost to the soil level.
Okay.
And they'll grow back from scratch in the spring.
cool.
The grasses, on the other hand, and most of your marginal plants, you can leave them sticking out of the water. And much like the grasses in the rest of your garden, you're
Yes.
going to trim those back
them
in
back.
the spring.
Okay.
Leave them in the fall and trim them in the spring. So let
Okay.
them die and fall over, and then in the spring
Okay.
you'll clean those.
So as you
ones up.
said, this is very important to the chemistry for, over season once we get into spring.
Right.
That you have to make sure you do take all that off so you're not getting.
Absolutely, and people sometimes want to split the lilies. Probably
Yes.
best to do that early in the spring and not
Okay.
in the fall.
Okay. Very
Okay.
good. All right. So next up.
Next, the fish. People
Oh, the fish.
are always worrying about the fish, and I'd say for every pond that is at least 2 feet deep, you can keep the fish in there all year round without worry, as long as you prepare the pond properly. If the
Right.
pond is less than 2 feet deep, you probably do need to transport them into a large tank in the house.
Okay.
And the one thing I'll say about that is the number one kind of risk for fish is that change in water temperature. So what I often do if I have to move fish is I'll get a large container. It's better wider than deep, and so that more air is exposed
Yes.
to the tank. Take some of the same pond water, pump it into there,
Yep.
net them carefully out. We sell, this is a skimmer net, but we also have deeper nets for netting out fish.
Okay.
And you'll get that fish and carefully put it into the tank of water. Put in aerators, some air bubbles to kind of keep the water moving if they're going to be in there for more than a few hours.
So trying to really create a very consistent environment. So what they were in,
Exactly. Yeah.
so you don't shock them too much, right? Okay.
Absolutely right.
Okay.
And there is also a water treatment you can use for that is called pond detox. And I didn't bring it out here, but it occurs to me that if you squirt 1 or 2 squirts of that in there, it actually contains valerian.
Okay.
that sedates the fish,
was gonna
calms
say.
them down, kind of puts them in a happy place while you're
Awesome.
going through this transition.
Yes.
So that's a good product to
Okay.
use for that.
Good tip.
But for the vast majority of people that are keeping the fish outside
Yeah.
in the deeper ponds, what you'll need to do is, again, use a skimming net,
Yep.
get rid of all the plants on the top,
Mm-hmm.
and then replace that with a large net that goes over the whole pond. So we
Okay.
have some pond netting here. This is our smallest size, 7 foot
Okay.
by 10 foot. And you can see that it comes with stakes so that you
Yes.
can peg it in around the outside of the pond, and they come in various sizes for larger ponds, of course.
So that's going to protect the surface of the water
Absolutely.
from anything.
From anything falling
Falling
in,
in it.
because you'll find that once the fall starts, once the leaves start falling, you know, it's harder to get them out of the pond than it
Okay.
is to catch them on the top.
Okay.
Having said that, if you have a lot of foliage and there's a lot of leaves on and the net starts to droop,
Yes, that's
then you should probably unpin one side and kind of dump them off just once or twice before
Okay.
we go into the snow season.
okay.
And get the leaves out of the pond and keep them out.
Okay.
Once-
So I noticed
Yes.
you have a heater here as well.
We do. The heater is going to be used underneath the netting, of course. It's thermostatically controlled. So
Okay.
what it's going to do is not heat the whole pond. That would cost way too much money, and
Right.
they're cold water fish, so they don't need warm water. They
Right.
they want to hibernate. So they'll go down to the bottom, but they do need some air exchange. They need for the little bits of decaying plant and fish waste that are left in the pond. They need to vent out.
Okay.
And the fish do require some oxygen. And so the way to do that is you put that heater in place, and as the ice starts to form around it, it turns on. And the heater has 2 lights on it. One to tell you that it's getting power, and the other one to tell you that it's actually working.
Okay.
So you'll see it going from blue to red throughout the winter, kind
Okay.
of going
I
back and
see.
forth as
so
it
it's
gets
just going to
cold.
create that way there isn't a full ice formation. You'll always have that
Absolutely,
little
yeah.
space.
Yeah.
That again you create air exchange. Okay,
Absolutely.
Great.
Now, what I should have said, as it is getting colder, you'll want to monitor the temperature of the water,
Okay.
and as it starts to cool down, you'll want to feed the fish less and less. A fish's metabolism, I
Aha.
said they hibernate in the dead of
Yes.
winter, but they kind of slow down to that state. So
Okay.
when the water temperature is between 15 and 10 degrees Celsius, you should be using cold water food
Okay.
and cold water bacteria.
Okay.
And the cold water bacteria will help to create an environment that is safe for the fish. It's still going to break down the ammonia from their fish waste,
Okay.
and help break down the nitrates, and it just makes the water safe for them.
Okay.
And the cold water food is easier for them to digest.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well, you know what? Good information, and that's going to help a lot of people. You can always come to Terra and ask more questions, and make sure you keep your little fish safe and have a great pond for next year. Thanks
you.
so much, Derek. That's it for now. More Terra at Home. When I dream in color. When I think of color, I think of Terra. Make your dreams come true at Terra, where color lives.
Heritage perennials. Look for us in the blue pots.
Good morning. Welcome back to Terra at Home. We're back with Michelle now from Terra, and we're outside and starting to enjoy as fall comes into our lives and all the beautiful colors that come with it, that great feeling, a little bit of a chill in the air some days and warm some other days, sweaters, jeans, and
Yes.
awesome decor.
Awesome decor.
Which is why you're here today with me. We're going to talk about how we can start to change up some of the colors around our house, moving again, transitioning from summer to fall,
Right.
and just by simple little
simple change-outs.
right?
And I think one of the simplest change-outs for everybody is door. So
Yes.
everyone has a door. Where it is in your house, it's hard to say, but everyone's got a door.
Right.
So changing out your wreaths, and there's so many different options. And as soon as you do that, then it kind of sets you in the motion of changing out everything else.
It does,
right?
because it greets you every time you're coming through your front door. And again, it's all about that curb appeal as well. So people will drive by your house or coming to your house. It's amazing what just changing up your front door can do.
Absolutely, and it's an attraction, right?
It
It's
is.
something that draws your eye.
Yes.
I always get started with the wreaths in the fall, and I love it, and then you change over to the Christmas.
I know. It's exciting time of year, really.
But yeah, so I mean, there's different types of wreaths that you can have,
Yes.
and you know, different styles suit different people. So we've got like the different silk ones, which are nice and bright and very fall-oriented colors.
Right.
Or you can do simple as just the leaves that we have on the door behind you.
Exactly.
And then I don't know about you, but I really am a fan of the neutrals. So I love the burlap. I think this is a really great wreath this year, just because it's natural, really natural.
And I
then
think
you
that's what we're looking at right now. Yeah, these are the more natural approaches,
Absolutely.
right? And again, we know that our leaves change color. So yes, so all of these colors are what coordinates. But again, we're looking at a different version of it, a different approach by just taking the natural. And some people will maybe add a little bit of color to these, or you can just leave them as they are.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the neat things that you can do is just add, like adding a clip.
Yes.
You know, there you go. You've
Oh,
got
how
an
cute
entire,
is
right?
that?
They're
Oh,
super,
I love
and they're
that.
kind of burlappy too.
Sure.
So you can just change that up simply that way.
And these are all available at TERRA, again, for purchase, right? So
they
it
are.
makes it just really simple. It's kind of hard to walk through here right now and just not want to like everything, because it's, again,
Change
a
of
lot of people just
season.
really love this time of year because these colors, there's something about this that just makes us feel really good.
It is. It's a cozy, comforting kind of time of year, right? You know, and everyone's back in the groove of.
Exactly. We're back in your routine and your schedules with kids at school, and
Yes.
you know, sometimes a lot of people will argue that this time of year is sort of the rebirth, the new part versus New Year's Eve and New Year's Day.
It's true.
Right. A lot of people will argue that this is maybe the time where we start to sort of, you know, start our life fresh again. So,
It is. I feel like Labor Day weekend changes everything for everybody.
Right.
And then you get into Thanksgiving weekend, and
Right.
you know, it just then you have all these things to look forward
Exactly,
to.
and there's lots
so.
of good holidays in there. So
Yes,
okay,
true.
so now your idea is that you could also make one. A lot of people just love that feeling of you know, sort of escaping life and just taking a moment, sitting down and being creative, and
Right.
putting that something on your front door that you made.
Absolutely. So, and there's lots of different things that you can do. Pine cones, acorns, burlap ribbons, things like that.
Yes.
But this company that we have, that we sell, is really cool because they make these frames. And this looks like absolutely nothing, and you're like, oh, gross, I don't want to buy that.
I'm not gonna buy this.
I think that's
No.
weird. So what it actually is it's framework for you to add mesh to.
Okay,
So
cool, look at that.
get these large rolls of mesh, and you literally wind them around in here, and then you use the branches to tie them in. So you get these big poofs of color if
Yeah.
you want color, or I've chosen to do a neutral one here, but I actually have another one to show you in brighter colors.
Okay.
And then it just literally sets in there, and you can create your own wreath.
That's neat, and as you say, you know, so you are making it, but it's not completely from scratch. So you have this good foundation. It's a good solid base. It's lightweight, which is great because a lot of times wreaths can be so heavy on your door and they're
Yes.
falling off and all that. But this is very lightweight, and again, you can just sort of add whatever you need to.
Exactly. You could change it up. You could be adding natural things into it.
Sure, you could.
Change the mesh every year to a different color,
Oh,
or
that's a good idea.
you know,
Yeah,
if you're
and again,
really
adding some silk flowers in there if you really want to. As here, you've added another one of those clips, but in the natural colors.
in the natural colors, yeah. So,
These are
I mean,
neat.
it gives you lots of options. And because it's a natural base background to it, you can do whatever you want as far as colors go, right? So it's
And
literally as
all
simple
these are
as this.
available. All the supplies here are available at TERRA, right?
All the supplies are available.
How much
yeah.
fun is that? I love that idea.
I
So
think
again,
it's
you really like
great.
the natural idea, but you were saying that you can go ahead and go with color. Like, look at that. That looks very, very cool.
Then you can go a little bit brighter and
Well,
go
look
with
at
your
that.
oranges.
Oh my goodness.
So
And you know what? Actually, that looks really neat because you're seeing these pieces coming through in and around it. How cool.
Yeah, they're
Here,
quite
I'll show
different,
you.
and it's quite simple, right? It's
Right.
one of those things that anyone can actually do on their own. So
Yes.
you don't need to have a big lesson or an instruction book or anything like that.
No.
It's very, very simple.
You're right, because as you're saying, when you flip this over and you're able to take a look at the wire that you're dealing with here, there's a lot of opportunities to kind of wrap
Yes.
things in and around. And,
Absolutely.
and
you
again,
could
also,
wire natural things like
Sure.
pine cones or things like that if you wanted to
that's
as
right.
well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's a really cool idea. And again, you have orange there at the front with all different types of stuff.
Yes, we've got the orange to go with orange flowers and then neutrals. You can change it up to whatever you would like, really.
I like that idea.
The nice thing with this, the natural of this color is that you can take it into other seasons too,
Yes.
right? Because it is a natural color. So
Right.
you can go into all different seasons.
Well, that's the thing, and I was just thinking that, if we kind of go back, we'll put this one down here. If we kind of go back to this natural one, this is something that you could take into Christmas, because again, right away, you could start adding some reds and greens into
Absolutely.
that. And literally, like within no time at all, you could change this up.
Yes.
Put in a bow, start adding, just as you say, some more pine cones and things like that, and just
Greenery.
slowly, greenery.
Yeah.
Oh, sure you
You
could.
could just
add some fresh
slide
greens
some
in there.
greenery in. Absolutely.
So these are just a really good base for that.
They're a great base, And like you said, they're super lightweight. I mean, it's like nothing when you're holding on to it. So you can add as much as you want to, and you're not gonna sort of have a heavy weight on the door.
Now
And
you're-
it's a good size as well.
Exactly, it
because
is.
It's a larger size than, say, something like this, which
Right.
is much smaller.
And some people have 2 doors, people have double doors, right? So again, you're looking at the opportunity of how I'm going to dress these up and what I'm
Right.
going to do. And a lot of times, this is the time of year where people are still also repainting their doors, and a lot of times people get out in the fall, paint their garage doors, paint their front doors, freshen up the paint, and then you get really excited to put something like this on. So again, the opportunities, of course, of silks, and again, this is done for you, ready to go. Take it home, pop it on the door, grab some mums, and change the whole front step
Absolutely.
of your house, and just
And now there's magnetic. For people who have metal doors, there's
Yes.
been problems over the years because they couldn't really get anything on them.
Right.
Well, now there's magnetic wreath hooks. So problem
Yes,
solved
and
for
they're
those.
strong.
They're very strong.
they're strong.
Very
So that's
strong.
something again that is a good option for people. Is again, you know what you're dealing with. You put it on right away, and again, you can just transition. And that's the great part about these. It's almost like sort of looking at the interior decor, when you can just take off your pillows off your couch and put on something new,
Yes.
new blankets, new whatever. That's what your front door is. By doing this with your wreath, you have an
Change it
opportunity
all
to
up.
change it all up.
Yes.
So I just look around. I'm like, which one am I gonna do? Oh boy! And you know what? And there are so many more than we're looking
Oh yeah,
at right
this
now.
is just a small selection of them. There's tons.
Way too much. All right, thank you, Michelle. Always
You're
good
welcome.
information. It's fun to go from the outside to the inside. That's what we'll be doing again when we return on Terra in another week. But we'll be back right after this quick break with more info and more fun stuff. We'll be right back. When I dream in color. When I think of color, I think of Terra. Make your dreams come true at Terra, where color lives.
You've sat under them and built forts in them. You've swung from them and fell out of them. You've even fallen in love under them. Trees have always held a special place in our hearts and memories. A natural beauty, trees will grow with you and your family and bring color and nature into your world. For your assurance of quality, look for trees and shrubs with the Medallion plant tag. Medallion plants, locally grown, the pride of Niagara.
Good morning. Welcome back to Terra at Home. We're back in our kitchen here at Terra with Chef Mark from PIazza Allegra restaurant in Hamilton. And fall is just around the corner.
Around the
so
corner.
we've decided to take the best of fall. And you were saying that you love cooking in the fall.
You know what? By far, autumn and fall is the best time of the year to cook. I mean, everything's coming into season. Everything is so fresh. Around here, everything is spectacular.
And
at that
we
time.
know when we are getting vegetables that are grown locally, and we have access, they just taste so much better when
They
you
do.
pick them when they're ripe versus being picked and then shipped.
And then
And
shipped,
it just
yeah.
they just don't have the same flavor. So
You know, when you eat food in season too, you
Mm-hmm.
find that you're going to be in track with your diet because you're using less salt, you're using less fat, you're using a lot less to make the vegetables taste the way they should
Okay,
when
that's
they're
a good
picked in
point.
season. When they're picked in season, they hardly need anything. Tomatoes don't need salt; they're
because
fantastic.
the
you know,
flavor
and
is so rich.
it's there.
Like it's there.
It's
right?
there.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's actually really good. And that's the thing, because people are trying to watch their sodium levels, and that's the one
That's right.
thing that we were talking, we've talked before, is trying to, you always cook with unsalted butter and try to keep the sodium down. That way you can adjust where you need to.
That's right.
And I think that's a really, really good tip for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so what exactly are we making
So
today?
we're doing, this is a soup that I make in the restaurant that I absolutely love because it really combines two unique flavors. We have a butternut squash soup that we're going to be making, and with the butternut squash I've sweetened it up. Okay, so I add a little bit of cinnamon to it, I have added a little bit of nutmeg to it for some spice, and then a little bit of brown sugar, and then roasted that in the oven.
Now with that, you just cut it in half,
Cut it in
take
half.
out the seeds,
Yep.
and then just
And
do
then
what you said.
just
Okay.
and just roast it.
Awesome.
The other one is beets. Now beets are peppery to begin with.
Yes.
Okay, they have a natural amount of spiciness to them. So what I've done is I'm enhancing that flavor. Oil, salt, and a little extra pepper onto that. So we're going to make them as two separate soups, and then when we put them in the bowl, we're going to have this really neat little pattern into it.
so neat.
And it'll
What a great
balance the
idea.
dish really nice because you have that spiciness over here and you got the sweet over here.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
And again, I love that. I love the earthiness of beets too. There's something.
Oh, that's so
Oh,
good. They're
very,
so
very
good.
good. What a
All
great
the way
idea.
around.
And you know what? This is the time of year when everyone really starts to get into, the air starts to cool off, particularly in the evenings, and then the sweaters start coming out, and
That's
you
right.
want to be making soups. And soups are great. If you're thinking about ease, you make a couple soups on the weekend, and you can
That's
have
right.
them, freeze them, which is also great as well, and have them for your family during the week. And again, you're not buying, store-bought, right?
That's right. And the other thing you can do is if you don't have time to finish the soup, even just having this done,
Yes.
scoop it out, put it in a container and freeze it. I mean, you can turn that into pastas. We've done some pastas. We did
Yes,
that
that's
squash
right.
ravioli before.
That's right.
And we could do that. You can make risotto with it. You can do a bunch of different things.
Okay, that's a good
once
idea.
it's roasted, half of the work is already done.
Yeah, and that's the thing we really need. I think in Canada, we really need to use our freezers. It's amazing what you can freeze.
That's right.
For a limited period of time, right?
Yeah.
And really it makes for ease of great meals.
It does.
Okay.
So-
butter first.
We have a little bit of oil and a little bit of butter.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the holy trinity of cooking, which is the mirepoix. Carrots, onion, celery. Okay, this is the base of almost everything that we're going to do.
So that's really kind of like the foundation of the flavor, right? That's just
It is.
building that.
That's right.
Okay.
This gives it its body, it gives it its depth.
Okay.
Now, we're going to put some carrots into both. So we're starting them exactly the same way. Okay. And essentially, you're making the same soup. It's just what you're
Right.
flavoring them with.
And that's the great part is once people start to get familiar with making soups, it's almost like you can just sort of come home and you can be imaginative, right? Like almost like, well, as a chef, as you know, you just sort of can just throw things together. You know what works.
That's
Well,
right.
you just start the base of that soup, and then as you say, whatever you have in your fridge, just go for it.
That's
and
right.
Try it out.
So what I've done is I'm doing the small one because the bulk of the soup is going to be the squash. We're going to garnish it with the beets.
Right.
So the smaller pot, I put pepper in this one because that's where the beets are going.
Okay.
But I'm not putting pepper into this
Okay.
just because I don't want those black flecks through. If I had white
Okay.
pepper, you could use white pepper,
Sure.
but you don't really need any spice in that one because you got the
You're
heat
gonna get
over
it
here.
from there. Okay.
But I am going to salt both of them. There we go. And we're going to saute all this. And you do want to saute it until the onions start turning translucent and everything starts coming together there for you.
Okay.
And we're going to add a little bit of pureed garlic. This just gives it a little bit of a kick. So we'll put that in there. Now the beets, I did peel them ahead of time before I roast them. So they were peeled, cut in half, and like I said, I just did the salt, pepper, and a little bit of oil.
Okay.
The squash, you do have to take out of the skin because it is sitting in the skin.
Right.
Okay. So you can either use a spoon or whatever you want, but you can see once you roast it, it just scoops right out, and you can get right down to that skin.
How long did you roast those for, roughly?
I did this nice and slow, so I like roasting it at about 340, 345
Okay.
for a good hour, hour and a half.
Okay, so slow
Okay,
roast.
nice and slow.
Lower temperature.
Yes.
Okay.
And that just softens it up. It brings out the natural sugars in it as well.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now, in both of these, you can, if you felt needed, you could add a little bit of acidity to it, a little deglazing with a little bit of wine. But I'm not going to add any wine to this.
Okay.
What ends up happening is if you do add wine to this, because there's sugar in this, your shelf life as far as keeping in the fridge gets shortened.
Oh,
because
really?
because the sugar in here and then the acidity of the wine, it starts fermenting very, very quickly. So I like to leave it out when I'm doing a root vegetable soup.
Okay.
And I'm going to
All
put
right,
these
good
in
to know.
whole. There we go.
So they still have a relatively firm texture though, right?
These, they're still fair. I mean, they're soft in the middle, but I
Yeah.
did roast them last night.
Okay.
So they have firmed up again.
Okay.
But we are going to puree the whole thing
Right.
with our immersion blender. So
It'll be
and once
fine.
it cooks down, you should let a soup cook for a couple hours.
So just to really
Just to
blend the
really
flavors?
get those flavors,
Okay.
incorporate all those flavors. So give it a couple hours on the stove, nice and low. It doesn't have to be quick. You know, you're not boiling it. And we'll put the squash into this one.
Okay, reminder of the spices that you added to
Yep.
the butternut squash.
This one I did cinnamon and nutmeg
and nutmeg with some brown sugar.
with some brown sugar. You could also do allspice would work well if you wanted to use allspice into it.
Okay, yeah.
It depends
All
on
those flavors
how
of autumn, right?
autumn flavors. That's right. It depends on. You know, the only thing you have to be careful with is it doesn't start tasting like dessert, doesn't it?
Yeah, you don't want the soup's too sweet, right?
The too sweet. That's right.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a break, and
Sure.
you're going to scoop that all out. We'll slowly
That's right.
start to let these cook away, and we'll come back and we'll make this really fancy soup.
Sounds
We'll
good.
be right back with more Terra at Home. When I dream in color. When I think of color, I think of Terra. Make your dreams come true at Terra, where color lives.
The Hamilton Spectator. At work, at home, or on the go. Read us online, in print, or download us to your e-reader. Get the Hamilton Spectator any way you want it.
Welcome back to Terra at Home. We're back with Chef Mark in the kitchen here, and we have our 2 prepared soups.
We do.
Okay, so what did you do? Because now they look lovely. What did we do to our
So-
intermittent break?
What I did is both of them I added vegetable stock to it.
Right.
Okay. Cooked it down for a couple hours and then pureed it afterwards. And then what you do is you adjust the consistency from there. So I like to add a little bit less vegetable stock, puree it, see if it's too thick, add a little bit more as you go along. Because when you're doing this, where you're combining the 2 soups, it has to be almost equal weight or else they're going to bleed into each other.
Right,
What I'm
okay.
trying to do is keep them nice and separate.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, so put the stock in, give it a good puree with an immersion blender, and then check it for seasoning.
Okay, and then just low cook.
And low, and just let it go for,
Let it go.
like I said, a couple hours or so. You can add a bay leaf if you want to add more depth to it.
Sure.
I don't think it needs it when you have root vegetables, but if you wanted
Okay.
to, you could always add a bay leaf to those. Just make
Okay.
sure you do it. Make sure you pull it out before you hit it with the immersion blender.
Oh, that would
You'd be
be
picking bay leaf out of
tragic,
your
wouldn't
teeth.
it?
So
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going to let you get fancy here and show us the
So-
chef secret.
this is these are little tricks of the trade that we
Mm-hmm.
have. If you get yourself a little ring mold, I think they're like $1.50, something like that. Really simple thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it really changes the presentation of a dish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ladle the beet into the middle.
And again, you can see it has a pretty nice thick consistency, right?
Yeah, this is thick. There we go. And then with another ladle, I'm going to do my squash around the outside.
Have you ever served this at your restaurant?
We do this one in the fall, yep. This time of the
neat.
year. It's a great soup. Now this one is a little thicker than I would have liked, but it will still work for the purposes of what we're looking to do here. So if I had more vegetable stock, you could add a little bit more
Sure, you
vegetable
could,
stock
yeah.
to this and change it up.
Well, while you're doing that, I just want to remind everybody, you can always find our recipes on terragreenhouses.com and try this at home on your own.
We'll just
All
clean
right, you
that up.
ready?
Now, here we go.
Dun, dun, dun. And out it comes.
Out
How
it
cool
comes.
is that? Oh, and you gotta be fancy. All right.
Get yourself a little starburst soup.
Isn't that awesome? And it's healthy and it's so tasty and it's so perfect for fall. Thank you so much, Chef Mark. That's awesome. Can't
There
wait
you
to
go.
try it. Have yourself a great weekend.